Any questions before we get to the exercise?
Elm.main.embed versus elm.main.init.
So back in Elm 0.18, there was an elm.main.embed. In 0.19, that changed to you always say .init, and init can take different arguments. So I guess the answer is that it's always init now, but previously there used to be different variations on that.
Regarding Elm packages, I've seen some reference to star.dat files on Evan's gists. Is there any relationship with IPFS or the DAT protocol?
No. .dat is essentially just a file extension for indicating that it's binary data. So those are all just cached files that like live in your, like you never actually interact with .dat files. It's just like when the compiler runs, it caches some information in like a temporary directory so that the next time it runs, it doesn't have to recompute that from scratch. And because it's more compact to store it as binary data than like JSON, it stores them in as binary data, and it chooses to use the extension .dat for that. That's all. So you won't actually ever necessarily interact with .dat files unless you're like writing some tooling for Elm, maybe. What is the learning curve for Elm when you're training new employees? So I would say...
Or just a learning curve in general for Elm.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll get an idea of that over the course of today. So what I would say is that usually people can get productive to the point of just through pair programming and sort of picking stuff up. They can get to the point of being able to write Elm code unsupervised in their first week. If you're pairing and sort of like investing in like actually teaching them some stuff and not just saying okay, go read the docs, you're on your own. I found pair programming is really effective for helping people get up to speed. But I would say that they're going to have a lot of questions at first, of course. So if they're modifying existing code, like doing a bug fix, that can be potentially pretty easy depending on what the bug fix is, if it's just some business logic. But I would say that it takes longer to, of course, achieve mastery and sort of to be able to like build your own things from scratch, build new features from scratch, to understand how to do things. The compiler helps a lot. That's a recurring theme, is that it's a lot harder to sort of like do the wrong thing and end up with the wrong output, because most of the beginner mistakes you can make will get caught by the compiler. So I don't know if I can put a number on it and say the learning curve of Elm is this, but hopefully that gives an idea of sort of the considerations.
Cool, that's it.
All right.
I have one actually.
Yeah.
Is there, I don't think I've seen anything, but is there any thing for source maps or any kind of like community thought around source maps?
Yeah, so I always forget about source maps because like we don't get runtime exceptions. So the two things that source maps would be useful for, one is like browser profiling, like flame graphs and stuff, like having those actually map to the original Elm functions rather than like the generated ones. It's kind of a nice to have. It doesn't really exist yet because it just hasn't really been a high priority project. And the other is, what is it? If you want to do step debugging in the browser, like you want to say like pause execution and then like step. Right now you do that on the generated JavaScript, but if you had source maps, you could theoretically do it using the actual like source Elm code. So both of those are like kind of narrow use cases, so they haven't really been a priority, but in principle there's no reason they couldn't exist except just that other stuff's been higher priority. Yeah.
So what is the process for like changing the language itself, and is it like community driven, or is it just that this Evan guy is like in a cave somewhere meditating and comes up with the next feature?
Yeah, so Elm definitely has like the BDFL, benevolent dictator for life, like model. Like I think that was like Python's term originally. Although I guess now Guido like retired, so they now have a different model. Yeah, so Elm actually works. Evan works on Elm at No Red Ink. We hired him in 2016. So it's not in a cave; it's in an office in Boston. But basically, we just pay him to like build the language, and so we've made a very direct financial investment in open source because like we wanted to give back and for a variety of reasons. but basically, yeah. So he's sort of like the ultimate decision maker. There's a core team of people who work on different things. Obviously, there's lots of community input into the decisions. But at the end of the day, it's not like there's no voting process. There's no like committee for like change requests and stuff like that. It's very like Evan makes the decisions like at the end of the day.